Hello, welcome back, my true crime junkies. We are starting today with episode 2. This case that I researched for everybody, going back to 1998. I do hope everybody enjoys it, and don't forget, before you finish listening, make sure to subscribe to my podcast and make sure that you will be able to find our podcast in any of your favorite platforms. Like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, many other platforms available out there. Just go onto our Instagram page on True Crime Junkies, and there you will find the link that will send you over to all the available platforms. And comments are welcome. Don't forget, be nice. So let's get started with our case here today. This is about Matt Baker meeting Kari Dunlin when they were students at Baylor University in Waco. They married 3 months later at her parents' home, and later he attended Baylor's George Washington Truett Theological Seminary and became a Baptist pastor. Again, so sorry for mispronouncing certain names. I apologize in advance. Now, during this time, the Bakers had 2 daughters, Kenzie and Cassidy. In 1998, Cassidy was diagnosed with a brain tumor. It's very sad. And after the treatment in the hospital, she appeared to be on the road to recovery and was able to return home. But early one morning in March of 99, Matt Baker walked into Cassidy's room and found that she had stopped breathing. By all accounts, Cassidy's death had a great impact on her mother, Kari. An outgoing young woman with a lively personality, Kari grieved greatly for her loss of her child. She sought out, she searched for counseling and wrote passages about her daughter, Cassidy, in her Bible. On April 8th, 2006, at midnight, the 911 dispatcher received a call from Matt Baker, a minister at the Crossroads Baptist Church in Hewitt, south of Waco. Baker said he had just returned home and found his wife Kari unconscious in their bedroom. The dispatcher told him to perform CPR while he waited for the emergency responders. Firefighters and EMS arrived, but were unable to revive Kari. She was pronounced dead at the scene. Officers with the Hewitt Police Department talked to Baker, who said that he had left his wife at around 11:10 p.m. to rent a movie and fill the car up with gas. When he returned, the bedroom door was locked. He pried it open. He pried it open with a screwdriver, only to find her unconscious and naked on the bed. The emergency responder noted that her body was clad in a t-shirt and underwear. Baker claimed that he dressed his wife while he was on the phone with the 911 dispatcher. A typed suicide note was found on the dresser along with an empty bottle of sleeping pills. Now, the officer took pictures of a scene, called a McLean County Justice of the Peace, and told them what they had found. After conferring with them by phone and without going to the house, the JP ruled Kari's death a suicide and did not order an autopsy. Now, was it a suicide or foul play is the question. Kari's parents, Jim and Linda Dunlin, were summoned to their daughter's home the night of her death. While they had difficulties accepting that Kari had killed herself, she did not seem to be any other explanation. Kari had been pronounced dead early Saturday morning, and Matt insisted the funeral to be done on Monday. About 10 days later, Linda Dunlin got together with her 3 sisters, who told Linda that Matt had hit on several young women over the years. They had kept these things to themselves while Matt was married to Kari, so Linda was kind of stunned. She resolved to find out the truth about her daughter's death, even if that truth that Matt had murdered her daughter. That was harder to accept than her daughter's committing suicide. The Dunleys had added Matt and Kari's cell phones to their plan a while back, and in checking the phone bill, Linda noticed a number of phone calls from Matt Baker's to Kari's cell phone after her death. Within weeks, Matt made approximately 180 calls to the phone and as many as 17 calls in one day. Further investigation revealed that Matt had given Kari's cell phone to a young woman from church named Vanessa Bowles. Remember this name later on in the story. Suspicious of their son-in-law, the Dunleys hired a former assistant district attorney and an assistant U.S. attorney, Bill Johnston, to investigate, and Johnston asked two one-time lawmen, former deputy of the U.S. Marshal, Mike McNamara, and former Department of Public Safety uncovered agent John Bennett to assist. Their investigation turned up numerous instances of Baker's sexual advances towards young women from his years in college and throughout his marriage to Kari. Further investigation indicated that Baker spent a great deal of time on pornographic websites as well as searching the internet for information on overdose by sleeping pills and for pharmaceutical websites where Ambien and other drugs could be purchased without prescription. Based on what Johnston and McNamara and Bennett unearthed, the Dunleys filed a wrongful death lawsuit against Baker in July of 2006, of course. That month, in light of the evidence obtained in the continuing investigations, the Justice of the Peace, Billy Martin, decided to reopen his ruling that Kari Baker's death was a suicide. Her body was exhumed and a new autopsy performed at the Southwest Institute of Forensic Science in Dallas. But because of the passage of time and the embalming of the body, the pathologist could determine only that traces of alcohol, Ambien, and Unisum, both sleep aids, were in her muscle tissues at the time of death. But neither a time frame nor an amount of drugs could be ascertained, for sure. They could not confirm it. He ruled the case of death undetermined. As part of the wrongful death investigation, the Dunleys hired a toxicology expert from Tennessee. The toxicologist's opinion was that because no pills were found in Kari's stomach at the autopsy, he did not believe she died of an overdose, nor that she died within 45 minutes. The time Baker said he was gone from the house, the JP held an inquest in August of 2007 at the Dunleys urging, and once the results of the autopsy came in, he took evidence from the toxicology and the pathologist and the police officers and the Dunleys. Matt Baker did not testify at the hearing. At the end, the JP changed his previous ruling on the death of the suicide to undetermined. That October, Baker was arrested for murder on a warrant from the Hewitt Police Department based on numerous facts that improbability of Baker's timeline the night of Kari's death. His statement during the 911 call, searches of his office and home computers, and affair with Vanessa Bowles, the toxicologies from the autopsy, and the JP's change in the cause of death from suicide to undetermined. The case was assigned to Crawford Long. Susan Schaefer, another prosecutor in her office, offered her expertise and assistance and gladly accepted. Now they are preparing for trial, and this was one of the most difficult cases, partly because of the enormous publicity. Both the defendants and the lawyer for the victim's family had been interviewed on TV, and Baker's version of the events was that he left home to get a movie for Kari at 11:10 p.m., and Baker's credit card record showed that he rented a movie at 11:50 p.m. The 911 call was received at midnight. That meant that Kari would have had to overdose and die within her husband's 45-minute to 50 minutes absence. The problem was that while the medical people believed the time frame was unlikely, they did not believe it was impossible. A very tough standard to overcome beyond a reasonable doubt. Plus, because Kari's body had been embalmed, most of the medical experts they consulted were unable to conclusively say whether drugs had caused her death. The question of lividity had the same problem. The consensus was that lividity can form in 20 minutes to 2 hours after death. The pictures of Kari were taken a little after 12:30 and showed lividity. However, the photographs were not close-ups, and doctors were unwilling to say from the pictures when her death could have occurred. Now, let's go back to Vanessa Bowles. Remember her? We mentioned her earlier. Even more curious was Baker's relationship with Vanessa Bowles, the woman who had Kari's cell phone. During previous questioning by law enforcement, she had denied a relationship with Baker or any knowledge of Kari's death. Abdon Rodriguez, he's an investigator in the Attorney General's office, was assigned to this case. His easygoing manner and his reputation for getting suspects to confess to their crimes made him natural choice for talking with Vanessa Bowles. Investigator Rodriguez interviewed Vanessa with her attorney, Bruce Burleson, on January 27th of 2009, and she held firmly to what she had told Hewitt police investigators in August of 2006. The attorney decided to subpoena Vanessa to the grand jury. She again brought her attorney, who said that Vanessa intended to take the fifth, but that she had some information for us. And they went to Judge Matt Johnson of the 54th District Court, had him grant her a testimonial or use immunity, then took her before the grand jury. They knew that through the cell phone records that she had been with Baker about a week after Kari's death, and she and Baker had been spotted looking at rings in the jewelry stores a few weeks later, and they questioned her about the many phone calls and about shopping for rings, and she admitted to these incidents but denied an intimate relationship with Baker. Now, towards the end of the questioning, she was asked if Baker had ever told her anything about Kari's death, and her answer shocked everyone in the room. She said Baker told her he killed Kari for her. They quickly got the details of the conversation locked down while she was under oath. After she completed her testimony, they consulted with the elected criminal district attorney, John Sergres, and he told them to prepare a murder indictment against Matt Baker and presented it to the grand jury that afternoon. Even more scandalous details, people. Now, the attorneys all felt that Vanessa was holding back more information. So they sent the investigator Rodriguez to speak with her again on March 31st. Vanessa essentially told him the same details she had given in the grand jury, but once the investigator Rodriguez turned off the tape recorder, Vanessa asked if he believed her. And he replied that he didn't think she was telling him everything she knew, and Vanessa then admitted that she and Baker had slept together one time in the master bedroom of the Baker's home before Kari's death. Feeling that Vanessa might disclose more if given the chance, another meeting was set with her in the office after hours. Over the next few hours, she told them about the relationship with Matt Baker and what she knew of Kari's death. Baker had begun flirting with her in November or early December of 2005, and by mid-December, the flirtation had become overted, with Baker telling Vanessa such things as, "Don't date that guy, only date your preacher." He also said that he had cheated before, that Kari never had a clue, that he had no STDs, and that he was unable to get Vanessa pregnant. Their conversations often included Baker saying negative things about Kari, that she was always depressed, and that he was always the primary caretaker of the children, and that Kari was lazy, and that their girls did not like their mother. Vanessa and Baker began a sexual relationship in late February of 2006 at the Baker's home. After their first sexual encounter, Baker told Vanessa that Kari was hideous and that he and Vanessa ever felt so much in love that Baker would find a way out of his marriage. By March, Baker was running his murderous ideas by Vanessa, suggesting such things as tampering with Kari's brakes or setting up a drive-by shooting, even remarking that he could hang Kari and convince authorities that it was a suicide. Vanessa said that Baker told her that he had tried to buy Rohypnol, which is a date rape drug, to incapacitate her. Matt finally settled on a plan. He would slip something into Kari's drink and leave a suicide note. When Vanessa asked him how he intended to write the note, Matt replied that he would type it. You can't type a suicide note, Vanessa told him. But Matt replied that Kari typed everything and that with the anniversary of Cassidy's death looming and the family's awareness of Kari's grief, no one will be suspicious. 2 weeks before Kari's death, Matt told Vanessa that he had made Kari a milkshake spiked with medication, but she had refused to drink it because it tasted like lead. Later on, they found an email Matt had sent to Kari on her work account from around that date, saying that he will make her a better drink than the one he made the night before by putting lots of chocolate in it. On Friday morning, April 7th, Vanessa knew that Matt intended to make another attempt on Kari's life during his date night with her that evening. On Saturday morning, Vanessa's mother woke her and told her that Kari was dead. Word of her death was quickly spreading among church members. Vanessa and her parents went to the Dunlings home later that day to offer condolences. As they were leaving, Matt followed them out and winked at Vanessa as she and her parents drove away. The next Wednesday, while the Baker's girls were at school, Vanessa sat with Matt in his living room, and he revealed the details of Kari's murder as though telling a story around a campfire. He had taken apart some sexual stimulant capsules, filled them with Ambien, and given them to Kari. She thought she was taking an over-the-counter stimulant as part of a date night, but consumed the sexual stimulant himself. He took Kari to the bedroom as she became groggy and handcuffed her to their bed, where he engaged in foreplay until she fell asleep. Although Baker always asserted in his interviews and his videotaped depositions that Kari was nude when he found her, we believe that she died wearing underwear and a t-shirt. Kari was snoring but alive. Matt kissed Kari's forehead and told her to give Cassidy a hug or a kiss from him, then placed a pillow over her face. Kari struggled, moving her head back and forth a few times, but between Ambien and the handcuffs, Baker was able to subdue her. He told Vanessa that he removed the pillow, thinking that Kari was dead, but that her eyes flew open and she took one enormous gasp of air. And then he replaced the pillow on Kari's face, this time being careful to apply pressure around her nose and mouth. When he was sure that Kari was dead, he removed the handcuffs, typed the suicide note on the home computer, and rubbed Kari's hand on the note in case anyone checked for fingerprints, and placed the note and a bottle of sleeping pills on the bedside table. And now, after staging the scene, Baker left the house to establish his alibi by buying gas and renting a video. He locks the bedroom door on his way out, leaving the couple's two daughters, at that time ages 5 and 8, alone in the house with the mother's body. Luckily for Matt Baker, none of the police officers who arrived at the scene checked the home computer for the suicide note or took the computer as evidence. Vanessa's statement to us that night confirmed their suspicion about Baker, but they were shocked at how much she knew. They were aware that Vanessa's progressively more detailed disclosures about Kari's death meant serious credibility issues in front of the jury, and they were eager to find other evidence to corroborate her testimony at the trial. They wanted to make sure that everything they had stuck. along with her testimony. They tracked down the email that Baker had sent to Kari shortly before the death regarding the drink that he had made for her. That email not only confirmed what Vanessa said about Baker's drugging his wife, but also about killing Kari near the date of Cassidy's death to make it look like a suicide. And additionally, Vanessa told us that Baker had sent her an MP3 of a song, Dirty Little Secrets, by the All American Rejects. Baker identifies strongly with the lyrics, "I'll keep you on my dirty little secrets. Don't tell anyone, or you'll be another regret." And remind her that if she told what she knew, she'd be the next regret. Vanessa had broken off her relationship with Baker in July of 2006 and had no further contact with him. Knowing that these pieces of evidence confirmed Vanessa's testimony, they decided to prepare and go to trial. During the trial, Susan Schaefer gave the opening statement. Though her office normally has an open file policy, in this case, they had not provided the defense with Vanessa's bold statements. The defendant had a propensity to change his story and lie, and they wanted to keep Vanessa's testimony sealed as long as they could. Schaefer went through the evidence she would present and ended by telling jurors that Vanessa would tell them how Kari died. Started by calling witnesses who testified about Kari's state of mind in the weeks leading up to her suicide to show the jury the improbability of her killing herself. She had been forward-looking and excited about an interview for a new teaching position. The interview was the day of her death. Next, she called the officers who responded to the 911 call, and the justice of the peace who had ruled Kari's death a suicide. She had the delicate task of putting on witnesses who had come to the scene and made some obvious mistakes and pointing out these mistakes to the jury. Most of the witnesses were willing to admit that they have since learned of the errors they made on the night of Kari's death, or they simply acted on the information Matt Baker gave them. The Attorney General were very frank that the investigation did not include many important things, such as checking the home computer for the suicide note, noting when it had been typed, taking the computer and printer, and collecting the wine cooler bottles on the bedside table. She simply offered the evidence as it had come to us, as they came to their office. The Dallas pathologist who had performed the autopsy on Kari's body had him explain it, why it was impossible to state a cause of death. After the medical testimony, they decided to put on the computer evidence. Baker had said he was using his computer to find out the effects of sleep aids his wife had been taking because he was afraid she would overdose. He was adamant that he had never tried to order drugs. Next, they called Linda Dulling, which is her mom. He wanted to tell the jury about some crushed pills Kari had found in Matt's briefcase a few days before her death. But they knew it would draw hearsay objections. To sidestep them, they asked Linda about her own confrontation about the pills with the defendant after her daughter's death. In Linda's conversation with Baker, he acknowledged that Kari had found the pills and said that the children at the Waco Center for Youth had put him in his briefcase because they did not want to take their medicine. When they called Vanessa Bowles, an attractive sixth grader teacher, she was very articulate. She told meeting Baker at church and admitted the affair with him. Vanessa held up her reasonably well under cross-examination. And after Vanessa testified, Dr. Sridhar Nataram, Chief Medical Examiner at the Lubbock County Medical Examiner Officer, asked him to review the autopsy findings from the Southwest Forensics. The Dr. Natarajan pointed out the gravitational lividity apparently in the few crime scenes photographs. It did not match up with Baker's explanations for how he found Kari, nor with a diagram he drew for his disposition in this civil case. In looking at the photographies of Kari at the scene and the autopsy photo, Dr. Natarajan found a mark on her nose, which was consistent with a pillow being pressed over her face. The jury was out approximately 7.5 hours before returning with the guilty verdict. They learned later they were very thorough to their deliberation and that there was only one vote. Several women that Baker had molested over the years, one incident involving a young woman who had gone to the hospital to visit Baker's while their daughter Cassidy was ill. They also put on a testimony that Baker had consistently visited pornographic website on his computer at the Waker Center of Youth and on the laptop provided to him by the Crossroad Baptist Church. Both sides made their punishment arguments. The jury returned several hours later with a 65-year sentence. They were satisfied that justice had been done for both Dunlin family and the people of the state of Texas. And now Baker was a person who led basically a double life and used his position as a minister for evil purposes. In the end, remind us of the quote from Shakespeare, The Merchant of Venice: "The devil can cite scriptures for his purpose." This was a very interesting case. I really hope everybody likes it. And just don't forget, make sure to subscribe and on any of your favorite platforms. And I really look forward to posting our next case in, next week. So just make sure to stay tuned and send me some comments. And remember, be kind and don't forget to subscribe. Ciao.